excited. So first of all, I'm going to introduce East Meets West for those of you that don't know. So East Meets West is run between Grain, Photo Hub, who are based in Birmingham, Format, who I work for. I am the format coordinator, and Quad, who where Format is run from in Derby. So yeah, we're based in Derby, and East Meets West has been going for a few years now, and it's a series of masterclass sessions that are run over, is it about a 6-month period? I can't think now.
Yeah.
There's about, yes, there's about
Winter
6 sessions.
Spring, isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
And this time we've got 15 participants, and Mark, of course, you're one of them. And during the masterclass, we offer kind of workshops that allow the participants to kind of develop and learn, and move your practice forward. And you get talks from professionals, so they might be writers, curators, artists that are exhibiting as photographers. And then you get portfolio reviews, so you've kind of developed maybe 1 or 2 projects throughout the time, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. So I'm now going to introduce you, Mark.
Hello.
I'm going to read your bio here, just so I'm not missing anything. So Mark is a Manchester-based self-taught photographer whose main interest is portraiture. You have worked in commercial photography in your 20s, but then working in the construction industry, the arrival of 2 small children, and a host of other distractions ate the next 15 years away, in your own words. So you returned to photography in 2018 after taking Red Eye's Lightbox programme. So Red Eye's based in Manchester, and your work aims to be accessible and relatable to all walks of life, and to start a conversation or the occasional argument amongst the viewers. I really like that bio. It's quite very nice and written.
Thank you. Yeah.
So you said there in your bio that you're a self-taught photographer. So I think it'd be good to start with kind of telling everyone how you got into photography, because it wasn't like a conventional route, in the sense that you're not educated in photography, are you? In a BA
or at all particularly, but you know.
Tell us how you got into it.
So so I guess if your typical route into photography is you study it, you know, in at university. I didn't study at university, didn't study photography. I sort of got into it as a hobby, I guess in sort of my late teens, early 20s. I then sort of migrated into working in photography commercially for a little while, as a sort of part-time job, at the same time as running another job. And that sort of snowballed, and sort of stayed in doing that for a number of years. But then my other work was starting to sort of take off, sort of in a larger sort of capacity. So and like say family and stuff started happening, so I had to kind of slightly knock the photography on the head. I was still doing it as a hobby and still enjoying doing it, but I had to kind of stop doing it in any sort of commercial capacity. And then worked for a while, had a whole career, that kind of stuff. And long story short, in about sort of 2017, 2018, that kind of came to fruition. I was running my own business, and kind of came to a point where I could move away from that business, which was great. So I sort of sold that all up, and I'd always sort of had this idea I wanted to get back into photography eventually at some stage, whether that was retirement or at some point in my life. Before I was too dead, you know. And then so things sort of all aligned. Like I say, that sort of business came to an end, or sort of sold that business off, and was ready to move on to a sort of new chapter in my life. And at the same time, I started doing. I sort of saw a pamphlet by Red Eye, who are, like say, sort of a similar sort of setup to Grain or Formats, but based in Manchester. And they were running a sort of year-long program they call Lightbox, which is sort of a series of workshops and talks, that kind of stuff. And it runs you. One of the sort of strands of it is you're in a group setup and you work together with the other people on the course to do a final project. So yeah, that was the first time I'd ever done a proper sort of formal project, if you know what I mean. I'd like I say done photography here and there and bits and pieces and really enjoyed it, but I'd never really, it sounds silly to somebody who's sort of graduated through photography and does this every couple of months throughout their degree. I'd never done a formal sort of project or anything like that, but I thought I'd give it a go. And yeah, the final project for our group. So there was a couple of groups within the Lightbox year. Our group we were called Disparity. So yay, all gets a bit apprentice. But yeah, hi anyone from Disparity, the former Disparity Collective that is listening. And yeah, we put on a end of year or end of Lightbox show, which was for the Liverpool Biennial 2018. So that's the summer of 2018. And yeah, that was my first ever sort of proper exhibition, if you like, and proper project. Yeah, and then here we are. We're about 2 years later, I guess. So yeah, so that was my kind of route into photography, and yeah, I mean, like I said, I haven't really formally studied at the university, but I've tried to do things like Lightbox, like the East Meets West program with format and grain to sort of, yeah, learn as I go. And then I've done various other sort of workshops and online stuff, talk to people. I'm always talking to people, so yeah, that helps. Yeah,
So
and that's all kind of rolled on, really, yeah.
yeah, so were you with your kind of going, I suppose Lightbox then was kind of your introduction back into photography for you, and that kind of first step into thinking about photography in a more structured way, and kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, being forced, I suppose, in that it's not an educational setting, but I suppose much more than you'd had before. So what was the main project you worked on there and kind of finished with?
Yeah, okay. So like I say, we were in a couple of groups, two or three groups, within the Lightbox program. We were about half a dozen of us in each group, and we sort of got set a loose theme to work around for our exhibits for each group. Ours was sort of slightly alternative looks at power, so rather a broad theme, as themes usually are. And then we each individually responded to that theme and sort of had 7 separate, pieces of work projects for our final exhibition. So yeah, I did a project called Big Stick, which, like I said, I had 2 kind of young kids at the time, and still do. They're just older and cost more. But they are, and I was kind of looking through a lot of my sort of personal work and just random stuff, both sort of more formal stuff I'd been doing and family shots and stuff like that. And I kind of spotted that a lot of the sort of casual photographs I'd done when we'd been out and about with sort of friends and family, a lot of the kids all had big sticks when they were like in the photos, like we're running around in woods and parks and stuff. They all seem to always pick up sticks, and I thought, oh, that's a weird thing. But I thought about it, and they're like, yeah, they all generally do that. And I spoke to some friends about it, and they said, oh yeah, my kids always do that. It's weird, isn't it? So that kind of gave me a sort of a kernel of an idea to sort of take portraits of kids with the sticks they pick up. And it sort of I sort of felt it fitted into this sort of slightly alternative look at power, if you like, or if you think of kids, generally, or photography of children, it's generally quite sort of cute and sweet and, fun and, childlike. Whereas, once they've got a stick and if you take them in a slightly sort of neutral way, yeah, suddenly they kind of become quite potentially imposing, or you get that slight kind of Lord of the Flies angle going on. And yeah, so that was the project I did for the end of Lightbox, and yeah, it went really well. We had a really successful group exhibition, which yeah, everyone did well at, and yeah, excuse me, not COVID. Um, Sorry, just talking too much. And yeah, we following on from our show in Liverpool Biennial, we got asked to do a little pop-up for a few days at Tate Modern, which was amazing. Not Tate Modern, sorry, Tate Liverpool. One day, maybe, yeah. And yeah, that was brilliant. So our group did a little sort of pop-up thing for a few days there, and that sort of got it out to the wider audience. And yeah, that was a really great opportunity, an amazing opportunity. It was sort of we grabbed there, and a couple of things that were emerging there was like one, the sort of general public that were viewing it were like, oh yeah, my kids have always done that. That's really nice, and it was just really lovely to have that kind of connection with people. That it is this sort of universal thing, whether it comes from something primeval or whether it's just a bit of a laugh, and yeah, it was nice to have that really kind of good connection with folks and feel that yeah, yeah, it was this sort of universal thing that people could recognise in their children or their grandchildren or whatever. Yeah.
No, it's a really nice project actually. I've got it open now. And how did you kind of because you said you've got two young, well, at this point had two young children yourself, and how did you approach kind of consent and getting kind of permission from the parents, and did you find that quite daunting as kind of your first big project really?
Uh, Not too bad. No, I mean, like I said, I'm quite. I'll just go for things really. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously it would be great to just sort of spontaneously do it, but that's just clearly out of the question. If you hang around a wood with a camera trying to take photos of children, you get in a lot of trouble pretty fast, I imagine. So yeah, I kind of did it by I did a couple of test shoots with like friends and people, just to sort of get the style of what I wanted to shoot down. And then I sort of put a wider shout out to my sort of local community, and then I put it out on social media, just saying, "Oh, I'm doing this project. This is the sort of ideas behind it. This is the kind of shots I want to capture." And then we just sort of arranged with people to go and meet up in a local park or woodland, wherever was convenient for everyone, and we just sort of yeah, spend an hour or two around there, let the kids kind of do their own thing to an extent. Um, and then yeah, at a certain point you'd be sort of looking out for a moment where they were just suddenly kind of getting into the right place. And you'd be like, oh, brilliant, just hold it there for 2 seconds, and yeah, I'll just do a few shots and just yeah, look this way or do that, or just stand slightly a bit more over there. Um, and yeah, trying to sort of, I think if I could give anyone a good tip, it would just be that trying to have that sort of slight presence of mind to think, over there is a cool space that looks good. I like that sort of background or that setup. I'm going to sort of wait till they sort of naturally are over that sort of end of things. I need to be over here, and just sort of having that slight, presence of mind to have that sort of pre-setting up everything, because kids don't stay still very long. So
Yeah, I was going to say it must be very different, like photographing children than adults. They need that freedom and kind of that space.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, I didn't want the shoot to be too controlled as well, because then you lose that sort of naturalism about how they do sort of yeah, randomly pick things up. And yeah, I got so when they've got kind of slightly dirty knees and stuff, you don't want to kind of be having everything pristine. It looks yeah, it's good to
Yeah.
have it so that they're yeah, sort of enjoying themselves and the space and that kind of thing. Yeah.
No, that's really interesting, and it's a really big project to take on as kind of your first, yeah, your first kind of step into photographing in that kind of way. Because yeah, photographing children, and it's a kind of a whole other thing to think about, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Um,
brilliant. Yeah.
so kind of moving on from what have you been focusing on during the East Meets West project? What's kind of been your next project?
Okay. Yeah. So the project I've been doing at the moment is hasn't got a title yet, but it's basically looking at dads who are the primary carer in their family relationship. So you know, it's an unfortunate truth that when a couple typically have children, it's still, I think it's in 89% of UK family units, the majority of childcare still falls upon the female partner in a heteronormative couple. But so it's and this, we'd like to think we've moved on, and it would be great if we do, etc. But it's still, like I say, massive majority. Like I say, nearly 90% of families, it's still the majority burden of childcare falls on the female partner, and this has all sorts of incredibly bad knock-on effects. So there's been studies done by employers, bosses, both male and female, that respond to things by saying, they will start sort of. I've gone a bit off track, sorry, but but I've lost my train of thought. But they if you've got somebody who's somebody, even if your children are at school, somebody's got to be there, sort of can't be in the office at 9 o'clock because you've got to drop the kids off, and you can't stay much later than sort of 4ish because you've got to be able to pick the children up, or somebody has. And you can't stay on for that later meeting, etc. When your kids get ill, somebody's got to be going home for them. And like I say, all the way up the tree, this unfortunately still has this sort of impact on women's careers. There's a fairly terrible graph of in people's 20s, both men and women are earning pretty much the same, and then suddenly in their sort of late 20s through to 40s, there's just this horrible dip off, and it is what's called the motherhood penalty, where even if you're still working, you suddenly find your the earnings just fall off a cliff, because it's that sort of period where people get promoted in life, etc. And we're still stuck in this horrible hole. So I've rabbited on, but in my own relationship, I happen to do the when we happen to have children, my partner's work was very much more regimented than mine. I was, like I say, working for myself, so I could jiggle my sort of work around, and so I ended up doing the huge majority of our sort of children's childcare during their sort of younger periods of their lives, and that was an experience, and one I'm very happy to have done. And I think I'm kind of coming at this project from quite a personal place, and I think if you sort of think of men as child carers at all, they're still generally portrayed as something of an anomaly, or which they are still, unfortunately, in society, or as sort of slightly comedic figures, which they probably are as well. But hey, and I just wanted to sort of do a project that sort of said, oh, these people are out here doing this, putting it out there and putting it in front of people and saying, yeah, this is a thing. This is a thing we ought to be moving slightly more towards. What does everyone think? Do you what can we do to move ourselves towards this sort of situation a bit better? I've explained that really terribly. I'm sorry, but
no, it's really interesting to hear. Because one of my questions was going to be kind of why this project, what sparks the interest, and it's nice to hear that it's coming from that kind of personal experience. Because of that, do you feel like you're approaching it in a different way? Like, what are you trying to portray from your other subjects?
I think if nothing else, just a classic thing that you get asked as a dad with children, when you're out and about, is this kind of just assumption that you're just looking after the kids for the afternoon or the day or whatever, and people just have this assumption that it will be the female partner who's doing the majority of the childcare. and it's, you know, I'm very early stages of this project, but yeah, they're uh, almost all the people I've worked with so far have sort of said, yeah, that's something I have to, you know, explain to people on a daily basis, that this is their sort of day-to-day role. And so I've started shooting it. Yeah, just trying to almost get across the normality and the day-to-day kind of, not the grind, but you know, the day-to-day work that they do as parents. And so yeah, sort of shooting them in a very quite a sort of domestic sort of space and a role. Just trying to get across that thing that, yeah, this is there's a lot of photography work being done, obviously, of you know, women in a domestic setting, and looking after children, that kind of thing. So yeah, almost sort of trying to shoot that, but with just men in those roles, basically. Yeah.
So how do you kind of go about approaching it? Do you spend some time with them? Are these people you know, or do you kind of want to get their backstory first, or do you just kind of go straight in and yeah, go for it?
Yeah. Yeah, more the sort of the first one really. I'll spend some time with some people. Yeah, so have a bit of a chat to them, find out, you know, what their personal situation is, how things came about. Um, just as a bit of a chat, really. But I mean, generally, I've been recording stuff, so I've got it all, you know, there if I need to use it for, you know, any future work or anything. And yeah, just discuss how their sort of situation came about, how whether they feel they've sort of faced any sort of positive or negative experiences, that kind of stuff. And yeah, then just sort of working out what's going to work in their particular space or their home, and yeah, going from there really, just sort of seeing what's going to come out. I mean, I've been trying to sort of go back. I mean, this was I've only, like I say, literally, this was going to be 2020's project, and yeah, here we are, all locked
Yeah,
down.
a lot of things have been put on
So
hold.
it didn't quite get. It was just sort of ramping up, and I was about to sort of put it all out on social media when everything, yeah, went a bit.
Hmm.
So yeah, just that really, just trying to sort of talk to people and see what sort of naturally comes up. I've kind of got a few ideas usually in my head, or like I was saying before, I'll sort of have a quick look around, see what's what and where and what might work on that day.
Yeah,
Um, but again, it's kind of generally there's, yeah, children there as well, so you've got to kind of factor that in again, which is cool, and it's yeah. I mean, I think both on this project and on my previous project, the Big Stick project, it did help massively to have spent a lot of time around my own kids and, you know, their little friends and everything. So being a primary carer did have a big positive impact on both those projects. You know, um, yeah, I don't think I'd have done it or in any way had you know, the same sort of skills to do that when I was 20 or whatever. You know. um,
yeah, yeah. No, that's really interesting. Where do you think have you kind of, well, you've said you've got ideas, obviously coronavirus got in the way slightly, but where are you hoping to take the project? Do you see it kind of as a book, or are you hoping to bring in other elements like the kind of maybe the interviews that you've been doing, or
yeah, probably not a book at the. I mean, maybe, but who knows?
oh yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess, yeah, if it was exhibited or something similar to that, it would be nice to have, yeah, some little sort of perhaps words or paragraphs from the
Mm,
interviews, just to give the viewer a bit more insight into these people's lives, and yeah, what their experiences of, and how it sort of is the same but different to, you know, going to things like playgroups, when the majority of people, you know, men do stand out at playgroups, as sort of primary carers. I mean, I'm hopefully we're on a road where this is changing, and I think within another, I don't know what, decade, 15 years, it will become more and more normal.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, that's definitely again a sort of common strand. So just like little snippets of what they've said in the interviews and stuff, and yeah, you know, to see how it all pans out. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be really, really interesting and quite powerful, and it is something that you don't hear about enough and that often. So it's nice to kind of find out those voices and kind of delve a bit more into their experience. So I imagine you're still now looking for subjects, I suppose.
Yeah. If anyone's out there listening that knows people, yeah, get in touch. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, I'm not totally sure what direction it's going to go in. It's very very early days, like I say, with the project. But yeah, anyone that is yeah a male primary carer in any type of relationship um, would be a good starting point, and yeah, get in touch. um,
Oh, hopefully we do. Hopefully you do get some contacts out of this. And you were saying, well, you said that this was meant to be the 2020 project, and it has unfortunately been put on hold, as many people's projects have been. But you have still been making some work during lockdown, haven't you?
yes, yeah. I did a portrait project just in my front yard. I'm on quite a busy road, and like when was it, the sort of back end of March, kind of Easter time, when lockdown just went boom and just happened like overnight.
Yeah, it
Um,
was overnight, really, wasn't it?
yeah, and just everyone was suddenly like, "Oh right, well I haven't got to go to work anymore," and everything's shut, and what do we do now? Yeah, um, and so yeah, I mean, after a sort of week or two, it was just like, yeah, like and all the sort of whole photography stuff just sort of came to an end overnight as well. So I didn't really have anything on that sort of side to do. Um, and I was just out in my front yard, and I sort of thought, oh, there's quite a few people just still sort of walking past, and um, I thought if I get a big sort of white bit of wood that I had in the cellar and set it up, I can I'll ask people if they want to do sort of portraits as they come past, and I could do it sort of being about sort of 4 or 5 meters away, so it's all safe. Yeah, um, and yeah, it was quite cool. It was one of those that I thought, shall I do it or shall I not do it? And are people just going to go, what the think you're doing? Of course I don't want to do that. But yeah, loads of people were really up for it. It was really cool, and yeah, I did. Yeah, about 100 and something projects, portraits. It was
Wow.
really really cool. Yeah, it had lots of engagement, and yeah, people were still sort of out and about doing their day-to-day stuff. I mean, like I was saying to you the other day, you don't normally think twice about going out and getting a pint of milk or going for a walk with the dog or whatever. You just go and do it whenever you fancy. And then I think it was just that period of time when suddenly, oh no, hang on, we're going to have to think about going out only once every couple of days. So we're going to need to buy milk for 3 days and get some bread while we're there and get everything all at once. So yeah, a lot of people in the photos, they're carrying their groceries or they've got a dog with them. There's some sort of specific reason that they're out and about, and yeah, it's yeah, but yeah, it was just an interesting sort of little snippet of time, I think, as well, and it was when it was really sunny, and I think people were still in that slightly sort of dazed and confused, but sort of blitz spirit as well kind of period
Yeah.
before I kind of ground on a bit too long, and yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like you kind of got to know your community a bit more and your kind of neighbours? Did it
Yeah,
give
a
you
little
that?
bit. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely people. There was one or two people that were like, "Oh yeah, I think I've seen you here or here before." Or yeah, like yeah, people next door. You kind of we live next door to some flats, and there's sort of that sort of chops and changes quite regularly. But yeah, it was nice to kind of get to know people a bit better and actually chat to people. I think if there's a positive side, ever to look at the sort of silver lining, I think if there's a positive side of the Corona lockdown, it's yeah, it's quite nice that everything's just slowed down a bit. You know what I mean? And everyone had a bit of breathing space in life rather than always charging off in one direction or another.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's definitely given people time to think. I've seen the images. I don't know if you've got any there that you can show anyone, but
yeah,
it
I've
really
got them.
have you.
Also, I
It
got
really reminded me of the I don't know if you saw it at the Midlands Arts Centre last year. The Handsworth self-portrait project, which was, so it was 40 years ago from last year, and it was Derek Bishton, Brian Homer, and John Reardon, and they were portraits. They set up, much like you, a kind of pop-up photography studio in Handsworth in Birmingham, and unlike you, you took the portraits, but in their case they invited people to press the shutter, and yeah, it really brought out kind of the when they're in control, the kind of their state of mind changes. They might relax a little bit different. They might kind of play in front of the camera, and I think your project really reminded me of that. And doing it in such kind of a strange and important time, and in a time that no one's really ever experienced before, when we're all locked down and kind of again, like not since wartime. Yeah, I think you've been documenting experiences, very new experiences that you wouldn't otherwise be able to. And yeah, I think it's a really interesting time to do this kind of project. But if you have got the images there, it'd be good to see them.
Yeah, okay, you might need to, I may cut you all off here, hang on. If I press the in the bottom right hand corner, will that reverse the camera?
Yeah, it should do.
There you go, that's us. Okay, so this is on a laptop here, sorry. So yeah, this was kind of how I'd set it up. So that was me on my front doorstep, and then I kind of had this sort of structure thing that I made that had a little notice on saying what I was doing, and then sort of a white board just to shoot against. And then yeah, this is just a bunch of the portraits that I shot. So yeah, it's a bit of a.
They're really brilliant because everyone seems they're not just kind of straight. No one looks very awkward. Everyone seems like they're really enjoying it, and their personalities have really come out, and they've kind of made the most of the experience. And considering we were just about to go into a lockdown, you don't really get that. You don't really get that feeling from these portraits. Everyone just seems really happy to be there, and yeah, I think like you said, everyone was still kind of in that dazed and confused time. But no, they're really happy.
Yeah.
They're really happy portraits that have been made in quite a dark time.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, it would be interesting. I mean, what would be really cool, and not really cool, it would be a real pain in the ass. But if there's a second, if there is a sort of second lockdown, perhaps later on in the year, I might try and run it again and just see how people's attitudes have changed there. Yeah, I might get a lot more people telling me to sod off, but you know,
hopefully not. But yeah, I think there would definitely be a contrast in people's demeanors and how they feel towards it.
And yeah, I mean, I got people to. I was sort of emailing people a copy of their photograph, and then they were I'd ask them to email me back just a little line or two about their experience during lockdown, which is a real nice sort of addition to the project. So yeah, I've got those kind of all stacked away, and yeah, it's just nice seeing how again, trying to see how people's feelings have sort of changed from the first sort of chunk of time in April. If it went down again this sort of autumn or whatever. Yeah, it would be quite interesting to see how things have changed. Yeah.
I think it'd be even interesting to get it back up now, kind of as we're exiting lockdown and things are starting to be back open, but kind of new rules again are coming in with masks, and maybe how that's kind of changing people's feelings at the moment. I think we're still very much in this COVID-19 phase, and even though we're kind of being able to go back to some normality, I think it would still be really interesting to carry on now.
Okay, yeah, cool. Oh, I'll get out there tomorrow.
Not saying you have to. It's completely your choice. But...
You've said I had to.
But yeah, I think it's definitely a time that should be documented and needs to be documented, and it will be looked back on in years to come. And yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It was definitely that. I mean, another thing, it was just at the time, if you remember, the media were trying to push this sort of doom and gloom, or it's all going to be terrible sort of scenario. And yeah, it was just too sunny for that. It was everyone
like the world
didn't
knew
seem to be the feeling on the the wider community. It just seemed, I appreciate some people had have had terrible troubles, etc. But yeah, just sort of out and about, people just seem to have that it almost kind of gave people a bit of an uplift, that kind of, like I say, that blitz spirit that, oh yeah, we'll kind of all pull together and we'll all get through this and we'll help, people next door that need some help because they've, etc. It really seems to have sort of, if there is a positive, yeah, kind of almost brought people together. And I don't know if that'll last, but I would hope it would. But yeah.
Yeah, I think we all hope it will. It definitely is giving people chance to change their attitudes and their thinking, I think, and giving people time to just think about life. And yeah, I think, like I said, it is a time that should be documented. And yeah, no, it's a really nice project. So, is there what's going forward? Is it your main focus is the project we just spoke about? Is there any kind of anything else in the pipeline? And have you've just installed an exhibition, haven't you?
Oh yeah. That was today. Yeah, sorry.
How
It's
did it go?
yeah, yeah. So some good news. Personally, is Waterside Art Gallery, which is a great space in Sale in Manchester. Um, a while back now, I got commissioned to do some additional portraits for the Big Stick project, which is the one we talked about first. Um, and that was due to be exhibited there pretty much Easter to July, which was basically lockdown.
Yeah.
So yeah, that all kind of obviously got shelved. But luckily, they agreed just to put everything back a couple of months, and yeah, so we were finally able to go in and hang it today because obviously there's been restrictions on even getting into the building to just work there. So myself and Mario Popham were there hanging up all the work this afternoon and got that all up. So that's all good. We still don't know when it's going to be open. They haven't been given the go ahead from the council, but I think they were hoping kind of early August. So a couple more weeks. You have to
Not too
hold on for a
long.
few more weeks, and then yeah, you'll come to Manchester and see it. There you go.
Oh, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So how did you said you were commissioned some extra images? How did you go about getting that commission? Was it something you approached them about, or did they see your work elsewhere? Was it an open call?
It was through. That was originally through. I did a review with the people at Waterside. That was through. I think that was through Red Eye, if I remember correctly. They came along, a little bit like the format reviews that have just run this
Mhm.
weekend. So similar sort of setup, you just, but on a much smaller scale. And yeah, just presented the work. They liked it. We talked subsequently, and yeah, that kind of came about there.
Amazing.
So yeah, they were kind of running a year-long program on environmental issues. So they had, have you heard, do you know Mandy Barker? Does
Mm,
the photographs like the sort of they're pictures of all the sort of plastic stuff that comes out of the sea.
mm.
They're
Yeah.
arranged in swirled patterns and bits and bobs.
Mhm.
Um, so really sort of beautiful images, generally on a black backdrop. Um, so she had an exhibition there, and various other people I can't think, but Luke Saxon had an exhibition there. So yeah, that just sort of and obviously the kids in the woodlands and stuff with the Big Stick project, that sort of tied in with their sort of whole environmental angle, and there is very limited amounts of space, of green space left for kids to play in, unfortunately, particularly in big cities.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, there's one of the areas I was shooting one of the Big Stick portraits in originally. Did a couple around there in a local bit of sort of scrub woodland. Is quite soon it's going to get like flattened, all cut down to turn into a housing estate,
Oh, that's
which
such a
which is a shame. Yeah, so I'm hoping I might have to sneak in a bit, but if I can kind of get the same kids again once that housing estate is being built or is about to be built, and try and get the kids will be a couple of years older, get them to sort of stand where they stood for the original thing,
yeah.
quite a good angle on it, and yeah, just sort of again sort of put that question in front of the viewer of, okay, this was a woodland where these kids literally played when they were younger. We've torn that all down. We've destroyed this natural habitat, but we have a housing crisis. These kids are getting older. They're, young teenagers now. In another 5, 10 years, they're going to need houses to live in their own. We've got to make that impossible choice.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say there's lots of brownfield sites in Manchester that you could do instead. But yeah, hey, I'm an optimist. So yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean that's something I'd like to potentially shoot again in the future, in a maybe a few years' time. Um, yeah.
Yeah, no, that sounds really interesting. It sounds like you've got a lot going on, which is nice. And do you feel like the taking part in East Meets West and even Red Eye has kind of opened up a lot more opportunities for you, or maybe just given you the confidence to go out and get them? Has it changed the way you have kind of approached your practice?
Yeah, it's definitely been very useful. I mean, I'm always keen on getting additional input on your work. I mean, one of the things I find hardest is just the sort of stumbling around in the dark, if you like, of you can go and produce some work, you can have an idea, you can shoot it, but yeah, when it's just you looking at it, you're just like, well, I think that's all right. I don't know, or does you mean you kind of
Yeah.
almost go blind. You're almost blind to your own work. You can't really see whether, and it's so useful to have other people, particularly sort of more senior folk, to be able to look at something and go, oh yeah, have you thought of this or that, or this bit is better than this bit, lose those ones, and yeah, I mean, I think it's good. I think everyone should be open to input and even criticism. Is good. Isn't it? It's otherwise, like I say, you just sort of end up in a bit of a sort of bubble on your own. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I found that really useful from the East Meets West program. Um, yeah, and then also the workshops. Just hearing other people's experiences, and yeah, it was quite fascinating. It was, if I remember correctly, I think it was Natasha,
Marijuana?
yes, talking about, yeah, just the sort of the economics of it, which I'm quite fascinated by. Of just, yeah, even somebody that's, had a very successful career, there's still, yeah, funding, the money of it, even the money that she gets for exhibiting is, yeah, not, yeah, incredibly varied. And yeah, I found her talk very interesting. Yeah. Just sort of how the whole looking behind the curtain at the machine, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that's the kind of the beauty of the East Meets West masterclasses. I think they kind of give you the opportunity and the access to voices that you wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to hear, and people that have this real life experience in the photography and art industry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it was cool. It was good. Yes, yeah. Yes.
I
Sign up
know.
for next year, people. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think now would be a really nice time to answer some questions. If anyone's got any questions, please put them in the comment section. I'm just going back through to see if anyone has asked anything. So we've got one here from Thomas. How did you feel coming back to photography when things had undoubtedly changed in terms of technology? Or did you use similar equipment as to when you were younger? So I suppose this is when you'd kind of come back after
Yeah.
your time self-employed.
So, yeah, things, yeah, obviously stuff. I mean, I guess the biggest change, I'm just about old enough to be, everything was still film. So we're talking kind of late 90s, early 2000s would have been when I first picked up a camera, like I say, when I was sort of my late teens, early 20s. And everything, digital cameras just about existed, but they weren't readily available. So everything was still on film. Everything was still sort of doing it yourself in black and white, dark rooms, that kind of stuff. Um, and then, yeah, but so coming back now, obviously in 2018, yeah, I mean, I switched over to digital, I guess, yeah, 2008, 2010, that kind of time. So maybe 10 years ago when it became sort of more affordable. Um, yeah, I don't think I'd ever go back to film. I must admit. I know that's not the sort of the cool answer, but
I think it's whatever
so,
works for you. And
um, yeah, I think I think I just find digital too convenient. I mean, I don't have a lot of time on my hands in my personal situation, so yeah, I find this sort of convenience of digital, without having to sort of get it processed and all the sort of messing around. Um, yeah, I mean that sounds a really kind of lame answer. I know to say it's just convenient, but I think it suits my method of photography as well. Just having that sort of I'm quite itchy-footed, so I guess having that sort of fairly instant checkout, I want to see it. I'm too lazy. I want to be able to see it quickly, you know. So and yeah, just all the stuff you can do on a computer, which doesn't involve sort of messing around with highly dangerous chemicals and stuff. I do remember doing
yeah.
it. I was like, oh man, no, just no. I'm all digital, I'm afraid now. So yeah.
No, yeah, I think you use the equipment that suits you and suits your work and your practice, and yeah, I think there's a lot of people that may have used analog in the past, and digital has completely changed everything for them. But yeah, you use what suits you. Nicola has asked, did you take your baby's children to the baby classes and be the only male? So did that, I
Uh,
suppose, did that kind of
yeah,
in your
yeah, I have done that in the past. Yeah, it's cool. It's fine. I mean, it's not a sort of hostile environment or anything, but it's you're kind of you are there as a bit of a ooh, look, there's a like a sort of strange animal has just walked in and everyone's like, ooh, look, children, it's a man, yeah, I mean, I have done that. I mean, my kids are now 11 and 8, so somewhat older. I mean, so we're talking, yeah, 10, 11 years ago, that I started sort of going to, yeah, play groups and stuff like that locally. And yeah, you would be. I mean, again, maybe stuff's changed in the last decade. It will probably be somewhat more now, but yeah, at that time certainly, yeah, you'd quite commonly be the only man there. And yeah, it was a different dynamic, I think is the best way to sum it up. Some people were totally cool with it. Yeah, you sometimes got one or two strange looks, to be honest. It did, yeah, it was. Yeah, it was an anomaly. It was an experience. Yeah, but generally a good one. Yeah.
That's
um,
good, yeah. And I suppose
yeah,
that's what you're trying to explore in this project, isn't it?
yeah,
Um, Nicola Shipley, that one was from Nicola Morley. Nicola Shipley has asked, was it difficult to find the other fathers to work with for the project?
yeah. It is. In short, like I said, I've literally was just sort of starting out. What would have been ideal would have been able to get it rolling sort of 6 months earlier, and then being able to sort of build the project during the East meets West thing. Unfortunately, my own personal situation, I couldn't really kind of do that, which was yeah, was a shame for me. But yeah, the so I've shot like three people so far, and two of them are people I know already, or in a sort of wider circle of people, and somebody I got in touch with through a sort of friend of a friend. Yeah, it's hard to find people. As with any project, you're generally looking for a niche of a niche anyway, and then you've got to find a niche of a niche who want their photo taken, which is nobody, you know.
Yeah.
So and there's obviously some issues, like some families don't, they're happy to. I found one or two people that quite like to be sort of interviewed and talked to about the project, but they're not keen on being photographed, or I may have to just shoot the dads in that one. They don't want the children, which is totally fine. I'm very happy to work around people, or what sits within people's own personal sort of happy zone. Um, so yeah, it's like anything. I mean, my next step, or my kind of coming step in sort of March, literally March, my to-do list was start finding parenting groups, Facebook groups, etc. Get in touch with people, start that ball rolling, and then yeah, everything went a bit down. But so yeah, that's what I'm trying to aim towards now. So yeah, that's it's trying to get in touch with those people, trying to find those people. I think probably like with the Big Stick project, hopefully it's kind of hard to get it initially rolling, but then once
Yeah.
you've done a certain number, I mean, I was having with that, people were seeing them that their friends were showing them. They were saying, so I was getting totally random people phoning up, going, "Oh, you've done this project apparently, and I really love the photos you did for my friends and stuff. Are you still doing it?" Like, yeah, sure, jump on, yeah, that's yeah. So hopefully that'll happen again. But yeah, it's yeah, like I say, if anyone knows anyone, get in touch.
Well,
Yeah.
Anna Lerner asks, does the project include single dads? And then later goes on to say, I'm asking to help spread the word. So yeah,
Yeah.
are you looking at kind of, yeah, single dads and dads from all different kind of relationships?
Yeah, at the moment, yeah, I'll try anything. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think if there is a main thrust, it's just to like literally normalize the view of dads as primary carers. So yeah, anyone from any walk of life, any family situation, set up, whatever. Yeah, I'd be brilliant. I would love to hear from people. Yeah. So yeah, if you know somebody, Anna, then yeah, message me. Yep. But yeah, I mean, it may be as with any project, you're never completely sure where it's going to pan out to. But yeah, I'd at the moment, I'm yeah, just sort of yeah, seeing where it's gonna blow to, So yeah, I'd love to. That'd be great. Yes, get in touch.
Right. We've got lots of nice comments about your lockdown project. Really, everyone seems to love it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, definitely reminiscent of the Handsworth self-portrait project. Yeah, if you haven't seen that, definitely look on the
Yeah, I'll have
Midlands
to check that
Archive.
out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really brilliant. As I say, it was 40 years ago last year, so 41 now. So, but yeah, it's still just kind of, it's a very moving project, and yeah, there's definitely kind of elements of it within yours, and maybe you can take some things from that one as well. But yeah, oh, Anna says I might know a group. I've put the feelers out. Oh,
Cool.
so hopefully you may have
Amazing. There
some
you go.
new subjects out of this talk, which would be brilliant.
Oh, that'd be
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
I think it's a good time to wrap up now because I'm wary that we might get timed out. But yeah,
Oh
it's
dear.
been
Oh,
really,
sorry.
really
Yeah.
brilliant to talk to you, Mark. And yeah, really great to hear some more about your work and kind of the things that you've been focusing on during lockdown. And it's really good to hear that you've still been making work and kind of, yeah, even on your doorstep, you can still do things. So,
Well, yeah.
and
Yeah.
some
Thank you
really
so much.
brilliant
That's
things.
fine.
So,
Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, thanks so much, and yeah, thanks so much, Niamh, and yeah, thanks to everyone at Format and Grain and everything for all their help along the way with the East Meets West program, and yeah, definitely check it out. Anyone that's interested.
yeah,
Yeah.
we've got one more session left on Saturday, and then
Oh,
everyone
we
should
have.
tune
Oh,
in
yes.
on
Yeah.
in August. Can Nicola or Stephen remind me of the date for Photo Cafe? I think it's the 13th. I'm really bad with my dates, but yeah, we've got the Photo Cafe, so you'll all be talking about kind of your experience of East Meets West and the work you've been doing, won't you? Yeah, in
Yes.
August.
Sorry, Niamh. I'm just trying to yeah move the thing. Sorry.
Well, I know we're both doing.
And yes, my amazing abilities with technology, but what
But
was I
yeah,
say? Yeah, if anyone's interested in the yeah our group project, which is the is that what you were just saying? Sorry, I was just trying to
yeah,
look up
no,
what
yeah,
the
as well,
actual
and the
email was.
website as well.
Yeah, our group email, oh God, website, sorry, is I'm going to get this wrong now. East meets West photo.co.uk. I think Nicola Morley is very good at telling me what it
I think
is.
someone can drop that in.
Yeah, somebody, I think that's correct. So if not, just type in East meets West photo, Google it, it'll work. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, and go check out everyone else's work. Our next talk is on Sunday. Yeah, and then we're going every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday until the beginning of August with the rest of the East Meets West participants. But yeah, keep an eye on our Instagram. Or I've just got a timer for 26 seconds left,
Oh,
so
cool. That's cool.
we'll wrap it
Right,
up
cool.
there. But yeah,
That's really
thank you
time.
so
There you
much.
go.
Thank you
Oh, no
everyone
worries.
for
So
watching.
much, Steve.
And yeah,
And
tune
thanks
in
to
next
everyone for
week.
listening. Yep. Cheers. All right. See you. Bye.
Bye guys. Bye.